You have been doing everything right. You cut the processed food, you walk every morning, you swap soda for green juice, you bought the expensive detox kit from the health store, the one with the kale and the pineapple and the beet powder on the label, the one that promised to reset your metabolism in 7 days. And yet, every single afternoon, somewhere around 2 o'clock, a wave of exhaustion rolls over you that no amount of coffee can push through. Your belly feels heavy regardless of what you ate. Your cholesterol is creeping upward despite your discipline. Your doctor glances at your blood work, shrugs, and tells you this is simply what happens after 50, that the slowdown is normal, that you should eat a little less and move a little more. I need you to hear this clearly. Your doctor is wrong, not because he is dishonest, but because he is looking at the wrong organ. The exhaustion, the stubborn abdominal weight, the rising blood sugar, the cholesterol that refuses to respond to your efforts, these are not symptoms of aging. They are distress signals from a suffocating liver. And here is the part that is going to make you genuinely angry. The detox juice you have been drinking to fix this problem is making it dramatically worse. I am going to prove that to you today with the actual biochemistry. But first, I need you to understand something about why this information is not on the front page of every health magazine. The detox and wellness industry in the United States alone is worth over $160 billion annually. Juice cleanses, liver detox teas, herbal flush kits, the entire category exists because it sells hope to people who feel exactly the way you feel right now. The moment I give you what I am about to give you, you will never spend another dollar on that category again. So stay with me, because what I am building toward is the most precise, biologically grounded protocol I have ever shared. The condition silently destroying your metabolism is called hepatic steatosis. In clinical settings, physicians sometimes call it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The public calls it nothing, because almost nobody talks about it, even though conservative estimates from the American Journal of Gastroenterology suggest that approximately 30 to 40% of adults in Western nations have it to some degree by age 50. That is nearly 1 in 3 people watching this video. Here is how I want you to picture your liver. Think of your car engine. Now imagine that your engine has an oil filter, and that filter has been working without a replacement for 5 decades. Every medication you have ever taken passes through that filter. Every environmental toxin, every pesticide residue on your produce, every artificial preservative, every hormone-disrupting compound from the plastics you interact with daily, it all runs through the liver. And if the filter becomes clogged, the engine does not run clean. It runs hot, it runs inefficiently, it begins to fail. Now, take that mental image one step further. Imagine that instead of just becoming dirty, the filter is also being packed from the inside with thick, sticky grease. That grease is triglycerides. After years of dietary patterns that overwhelm the liver's fat processing capacity, tiny microscopic lipid droplets begin to accumulate inside the liver cells themselves, a process called intrahepatic lipid accumulation. These droplets are not dramatic. You cannot feel them individually. There is no pain, no obvious symptom you can point to in a single moment. That is why physicians call this condition silent. The liver has very few pain receptors. It suffers quietly while you wonder why your body no longer responds to the same strategies that worked in your 30s. But the downstream consequences are anything but subtle. When hepatic fat accumulation crosses a critical threshold, 3 things happen simultaneously, and each one sabotages you at a different level. First, the liver's ability to produce and regulate bile acid secretion becomes compromised. Bile is not just a digestive fluid. It is a master metabolic signal. It activates receptors throughout your body that regulate glucose uptake, insulin sensitivity, and the rate at which stored body fat is mobilized for energy. When bile flow becomes sluggish because the liver is congested, your body loses one of its primary fat-burning signals. Second, the liver's mitochondrial density in hepatocytes, the actual energy-producing structures inside liver cells, begins to decline. Research published in the Journal of Hepatology has documented mitochondrial dysfunction as one of the earliest markers of hepatic steatosis, appearing even before significant fat accumulation is visible on imaging. Your liver becomes energetically inefficient, And because the liver is the central processing hub for your entire metabolism, the rest of your body follows. Third, and this is the mechanism most directly connected to that 2 o'clock energy crash you feel every day. A congested liver struggles to maintain stable glycogen stores and regulate postprandial glucose clearance. Translation: your blood sugar swings become wider and more chaotic after every meal, and in the midday crash window, your body lacks the hepatic reserves to sustain steady energy output. The exhaustion is real. It is biological. It is not in your head, and it has a specific, addressable cause. Now, let me tell you about the multi-billion-dollar lie you have been sold in response to all of this. The Detox Juice Cleanse. I want to go through the biochemistry of this carefully because I genuinely want you to feel the full weight of how poorly designed this intervention is for a congested liver. When you juice a fruit, you remove the fiber matrix. That fiber is not decorative. In whole fruit, fiber is the biological brake system that controls how quickly the sugars inside that fruit reach your bloodstream and, more critically, your liver. When you drink cold-pressed apple juice, beet juice, pineapple juice, or any fruit-forward cleanse blend, you are delivering what researchers call unbuffered fructose directly to your portal circulation. A single glass of commercial detox juice routinely contains between 30 and 45 grams of fructose in liquid form, completely stripped of its natural fiber break. Here is why that is catastrophic for a fatty liver specifically. Unlike glucose, which is distributed for uptake across every tissue in your body, fructose is processed almost exclusively by the liver. The liver is the primary site of fructose metabolism. When a large bolus of liquid fructose arrives at the liver, the hepatocytes respond by activating a metabolic pathway called de novo lipogenesis. This is not a theory. This is a well-replicated finding. A landmark study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation demonstrated directly that acute fructose loading significantly increases hepatic triglyceride synthesis in human subjects, with effects visible in liver fat measurements within days of sustained intake. What this means in plain language is this: the detox juice you are drinking to flush fat from your liver is triggering a metabolic command that tells your liver to manufacture new fat. You are pouring what you believe is a solvent onto a grease fire, but the chemistry of that solvent converts it into more grease on contact. The industry knows this. The biochemistry has been published. And still, every January, millions of people spend hundreds of dollars on juice cleanse programs that are biologically designed to accelerate the exact pathology they are trying to reverse. So what actually works? What does the genuine clinical science support for reducing hepatic steatosis, restoring bile flow, regenerating mitochondrial efficiency, and giving an aging liver the tools it needs to restart your metabolism from the inside out? The answer involves two compounds that have been documented in peer-reviewed literature for decades but exist almost entirely outside mainstream wellness conversations. The first is TUDCA, tauroursodeoxycholic acid. TUDCA is a water-soluble bile acid that occurs naturally in small quantities in human bile and in much more significant concentrations in bear bile, which is how it was first identified in traditional Eastern medicine. What makes TUDCA pharmacologically remarkable for hepatic steatosis is its specific mechanism of action at the cellular level. TUDCA functions as what researchers describe as a chemical chaperone for endoplasmic reticulum stress. In simpler terms, when liver cells become overwhelmed by fat accumulation, they trigger an internal distress pathway called the unfolded protein response, a kind of cellular emergency alarm. This alarm, if sustained, leads to programmed hepatocyte death, which is exactly the progression that separates reversible fatty liver from permanent fibrotic scarring. TUDCA interrupts this distress signal and allows liver cells to survive and recover rather than self-destruct. But TUDCA does something else that is even more directly relevant to your metabolic sluggishness. As a bile acid, it physically emulsifies lipid deposits within the bile duct system. Think of it as biological dish soap at the molecular level. The same chemical principle that allows soap to lift grease from a pan, the hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail of an amphipathic molecule, allowing it to surround and suspend lipid droplets in an aqueous environment, is what TUDCA does inside your biliary system. It solubilizes the accumulated triglycerides that have been blocking bile flow, restores the circulation of bile acids through the enterohepatic loop, and reactivates the metabolic signaling that drives fat oxidation throughout the body. A clinical trial published in Hepatology demonstrated statistically significant reductions in liver enzyme markers, specifically ALT and AST, among subjects with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease receiving TUDCA supplementation compared to placebo controls. A separate series of studies from Italian hepatology research groups showed improvements in insulin sensitivity concurrent with TUDCA intervention. This is not fringe naturopathic speculation. This is published clinical hepatology. The second compound is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. If TUDCA is the emulsifying agent that solubilizes and mobilizes the accumulated fat, NAC is the cellular repair crew that moves in once the fat is cleared. NAC is the most bioavailable dietary precursor to glutathione, the most abundant endogenous antioxidant in the human body, and one that is produced in greatest concentration inside the liver itself. Glutathione performs a function in the hepatocyte that no external antioxidant can replicate from outside the cell. It neutralizes the reactive oxygen species generated during fatty acid oxidation. When the liver begins breaking down stored lipids at an accelerated rate, that breakdown produces oxidative byproducts. Without adequate glutathione reserves, those byproducts damage the very mitochondria performing the fat oxidation, creating a self-defeating cycle where aggressive fat mobilization triggers the cellular damage that reduces the capacity for further fat mobilization. NAC breaks this cycle by replenishing the glutathione supply that allows mitochondria to sustain their fat-burning function without accumulating oxidative damage. Research published in Free Radical Biology and Medicine documented NAC supplementation producing measurable increases in hepatic glutathione levels in human subjects, with corresponding improvements in markers of mitochondrial integrity. A review in the European Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology identified NAC as one of the most promising adjunctive interventions for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease based on its dual mechanism of glutathione repletion and direct hepatocyte cytoprotection. Together, TUDCA and NAC form a precise biochemical sequence. TUDCA dissolves the structural lipid blockages, restores bile flow, and halts hepatocyte distress signaling. NAC simultaneously rebuilds the glutathione shield that allows liver cells to sustain the increased metabolic workload of fat clearance without sustaining oxidative damage. These two compounds do not overlap. They do not compete. They address consecutive biological problems in the exact order those problems need to be addressed. Here is your exact protocol. Each morning, upon waking and before consuming any food or beverage other than water, take 500 milligrams of TUDCA and 600 milligrams of NAC together. The empty stomach timing is not optional and it is not approximate. It is a pharmacokinetic requirement. Both compounds need to enter portal circulation without competition from digestive enzymes, bile already engaged in emulsifying a meal, or the hormonal cascade triggered by caloric intake. When taken fasted, TUDCA reaches hepatic tissue at peak bioavailability within approximately 45 to 60 minutes. When taken with food, that bioavailability drops significantly as the compound becomes engaged in active digestion rather than targeted hepatic delivery. Sourcing matters. For TUDCA, you are looking for pharmaceutical-grade purity certificates showing a minimum of 98% active compound. Avoid blended liver support products where TUDCA is listed as one ingredient among 12 others, because the dose you receive from those products is almost always subclinical. For NAC, avoid effervescent formulations, which frequently contain high sodium loads and artificial sweeteners that create their own hepatic burden. Standard encapsulated NAC at the 600 milligram dose is what the clinical literature supports. The third pillar of this protocol is hydration, and it is non-negotiable for a specific biochemical reason. As TUDCA mobilizes emulsified lipid droplets from the biliary system, those compounds must exit the body through the kidneys and the intestinal tract. Inadequate water intake creates a bottleneck where mobilized toxins and lipid metabolites recirculate rather than being eliminated. You need a minimum of 80 ounces of purified water throughout the day, not all at once. distributed consistently from morning through early evening, stopping about 2 hours before sleep to protect sleep quality. There is one additional cofactor I want you to implement in the first 7 days specifically. In the morning window between taking your TUDCA and NAC and your first meal, consume a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. This is not a folk remedy. Olive oil is the most potent dietary stimulant of cholecystokinin, the hormone that triggers bile release from the gallbladder. By inducing a gentle bile flush immediately after TUDCA has been delivered to the hepatic system, you are creating a flow state in the biliary tract that mechanically assists the clearance of emulsified lipid deposits. The biochemistry of this interaction was described in research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, examining olive oil's choleretic properties in healthy adults. Now, here is what I am asking you to commit to for the next 30 days. Stop the juice cleanses. Put them down completely. Every glass of fruit-forward liquid you drink is a direct command to your liver to produce new fat. Replace that morning ritual with the TUDCA and NAC protocol I have given you, followed by water and olive oil. Eat your first real meal at least 1 hour after taking your compounds. Track 2 measurements on day 1 and again on day 30. First, your fasting morning glucose. You can do this with an inexpensive glucometer from any pharmacy. For most adults over 50 with hepatic congestion, fasting glucose sits in the 95 to 115 range. After 30 days of restored hepatic function and improved insulin sensitivity, many people move back below 90, which is a genuinely significant metabolic shift. Second, track your afternoon energy at the 2 o'clock hour. Rate it on a simple 1 to 10 scale every day. You will notice the shift before the 30 days are over. Most people report a meaningful change between days 12 and 18. If you get results, come back and tell me. And share this with someone you love who is still doing juice cleanses, because they deserve to know the biochemistry before they spend another month making the problem worse. Now stay with me, because in the next video I am going to reveal something that will completely change how you think about the one morning supplement that 70% of adults over 50 take religiously every single day, believing it protects their heart, when a growing body of clinical evidence suggests it may be quietly calcifying the soft tissue in their arteries. That is not a metaphor. The research is disturbing, specific, and the supplement industry has absolutely no incentive to tell you about it. Hit the notification bell before you close this tab. You do not want to miss that one.